I'm going to go into the whole issue of black boys a little bit more. And just for some context, I think middle school is especially dangerous for all kids, especially large public middle schools. You know, maybe smaller communities, it's not so bad. I personally have two grown kids who, with a white mother, who, when I went and visited their fourth grade and I saw the lunchroom, pulled them out of school immediately. No questions asked. That was the last day they ever saw inside of a public school. My current wife is black, and we've thought about having kids. And when I just, you know, the flick of a thought in my brain of having a black boy, I'm like, no way, no way, no way, no way, no way. Separately, I'm mentoring or coaching, consulting with an African family of means who's coming to the US, and the thought of sending their, you know, black boy to a public, not even on the map. So I'd love to both your own personal experience and how you think about that. Where and when might it be okay for a family to send their black boy to a regular school?
Yeah. Well, if you, in our previous conversation, Michael, I disclosed that, again, you know, the studies that I did and the research around the outcomes of boys of color, particularly black boys, are so grim that in many ways, if you follow the herd on this one, you are almost assuredly getting yourself in trouble. And so what would I advise? A lot of it depends on the context of the family, but there is no question that there's something toxic, not just in the United States culture, but in our schools proper around boys of color, particularly black boys. And I will just tell you a quick story. I mean, I think Andrew mentioned it early at the beginning. You know, my son was was enrolled in a school for his kindergarten. He was going to start the following Sunday, and it was in the Wednesday before. There was a newspaper clipping that showed how the principal had been telling her staff that she wanted her child, who was coming into school that same year, she wanted her child to be in a classroom with, quote, other good white neighborhood kids. And she said this multiple times to staff. Now that is terrible, right? And this became a real public issue, but the school system, they kind of gave her a bit of a slap on the wrist, and, you know, it is what it is. But in the meeting that we had the Friday before school started, her apology was that she was so excited that her grandson was starting school with that year that she kind of lost herself. So really her apology was, I disclosed how I really feel, right? Sorry for disclosing that. But the real problem, Michael, is that I really had to think long and hard about whether I would pull him out. Like, what does it mean that I would hear this principal articulate these thoughts, and me still going, well, maybe I'll still leave him there. Maybe there's a school that I should consider, right? That I was even in that mindset really infuriates me now. But that's part of how deeply we all are indoctrinated to believe that school is the only pathway to a successful life. Now, having pulled him out, I can tell you that I want to now thank that principal, because she opened my eyes to the reality that I, Matt Barnes, and my wife, we are responsible for my child's future. We are responsible. Nobody's going to hurt like we hurt when our child is not doing well. And no one's going to celebrate like we celebrate when our child is doing well. Now, going further, before that moment, I kept seeing signs of teachers, and when we're doing interviews for schools and things like that, of people saying, well, you know, he's a black boy, you know, don't expect too much, right? He can't do certain things, right? I heard that multiple times in different ways, softly, but there was definitely there. And then, you know, my son, who's just killing it academically, he's a beast. I mean, an absolute beast. And nobody would recognize that. And so I had to start fighting off these affronts that would come from media, would come from my family members, would come from people in my church. The first question they'd ask him is not, what have you read? It's, do you like basketball? Right? That's a cultural message that assumes that my child is more interested in basketball than in learning. That is part of what's in our water. So I had to become the battler, and it's exhausting, but you know, my son is just crushing it. He's just absolutely lights out. But it required a ton of effort, and I want to help parents know how to fight smarter. I spent a lot of effort. I didn't have to fight that hard for as long. I could have done a lot better with it.